Week 1 of the 2019 college football season kicks off tonight, officially. Of course, we had week 0 last weekend with a couple of games. But everybody else plays this week, right? The official kickoff to the 2019 season. And it does start tonight with a handful of games. And I'm back with another preview and prediction video for a slate of games coming up. And people have asked me a few comments. I got an email. If I do all the SEC previews on Tuesday and I do all the top 25 previews on Wednesday, what's left to preview on a Thursday video? Well, there's always a few teams and then a few games that, at least to me, are interesting, even though they're not ranked, right? And we got a couple examples of those here. For Florida State plays. They're not ranked. I haven't previewed that game yet. They're playing Boise State. Big game. We'll talk about that one today. Southern Cal, another disappointing team from last year, but an interesting team to me that's not ranked heading into the season. Going to talk about that game today. And I got a handful of others that I think are pretty interesting too. Let's go.
We about to turn it on.
Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yep, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also. And in addition to that as well, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post these videos year-round. I post college football videos every single day of the year. Sometimes they're even watchable. Give this video a thumbs up if you're excited for the official start of the season, right? I mentioned a couple of teams played last weekend, but chances are your team is playing this weekend for the first time. Give this video a thumbs up if you're excited. We're going to do another series of preview and prediction videos here today. And we got some pretty interesting matchups here, and I think some pretty good bets on the board in this slate of games that we're going to cover today too. Now, as usual, all of these prediction videos this season are sponsored by the good people over at betnow.eu. I've been working with them for a couple of years now. They're really good people. Their site is great. It's really easy to use, and you won't run into any problems over there. When you get signed up over at betnow.eu, make sure you use the promo code Uncle Lou. That's one word, Uncle Lou, and they're going to give you a bonus on your deposit. If you sign up before September 16th, it's going to be a 100% bonus. So you deposit 100, they give you 200. You deposit 500, they give you 1,000. You get the idea. You deposit 25, they give you 50, whatever the case may be. All of the line spreads, point spreads, over, unders, all that kind of stuff that I mentioned in today's video is going to come directly from the site over there at betnow.eu. Click the link in the description of this video. Get yourself signed up. All right, here we go. We got a game tonight that to me is really interesting, actually, for a couple of different reasons. And again, I've done a preview video on all the SEC teams. That was on Tuesday, so you can click back a day or two and find that video. Yesterday, I did a preview on all of the teams in the top 25, except the SEC teams, obviously. I did those the day before, but you get the idea. Today, the rest of the games that are interesting to me. UCLA on the road at Cincinnati. Now, this is going to be a good game, I think. Cincinnati has the potential, in my opinion, to be the best group of 5 team this year. That's not a far-fetched idea at all. You've got a handful of teams, I think, who have a realistic shot to be that group of 5 team that maybe tries to crack the top 10, get into a New Year's Six bowl, that sort of thing. Obviously, you've got Central Florida. Cincinnati, I think, is in that mix. Memphis, maybe 1 or 2 other teams. But Cincinnati gets UCLA at home, so UCLA got to travel a long way, Cincinnati, to play this game. These two teams played last year. I think it was week 1, too, and Cincinnati absolutely destroyed them. Of course, we all know the troubles UCLA had last year under first-year head coach Chip Kelly, especially in the beginning of the season, starting off really, really slow, really, really rocky with a series of losses. UCLA should be much better year 2 under Chip Kelly, even if the players aren't a whole lot better talent-wise, even if the roster hasn't been upgraded maybe to the point that UCLA fans would like it to be. Keep in mind, this is only his 2nd year there. At least the players who are there are now in the 2nd year of this system, and Chip Kelly does run sort of a unique offensive system, so I think it was expected to see them struggle last year. However, I also think it's expected for them to be much better this year in year 2. Cincinnati's a 3-point favorite in this game, and the over-under is at 57.5. I'm having a hard time deciding which side to play on this game at the -3. Cincinnati could very well be a better team than UCLA. I kind of feel like UCLA is being punished for the bad season they had last year. UCLA is being punished for the beatdown they took by Cincinnati last year. These are two totally different teams here. However, it's at Cincinnati. I really wanted to take UCLA in this game and say, give me the 3 points. But with it being on the road at night at Cincinnati, I couldn't pull the trigger on UCLA. And I'm not confident enough in the fact that Cincinnati will cover this 3 to really take that either. I think UCLA is going to be much better this year. So here's what I decided to do on this one. Cincinnati wants to slow the game down with a ground game. They want to run the ball. They want to limit the number of possessions that UCLA and Chip Kelly get. Because, of course, they are a fast-paced offense that likes to move up and down the field and try to score a lot of points. I'm not going to tell you which way to go on this one at the -3 with UCLA or Cincinnati, but here's what I am going to tell you. The over-under is 57.5. If you're not sold on UCLA for this year and you think Cincinnati will cover this 3.5, I think you should take the under. Because for Cincinnati to win this game, they're going to have to slow the game down. Like I mentioned, limit the possessions for UCLA, which means probably less points will be scored overall in this game. So if you like Cincinnati in this game, I would consider taking Cincinnati and the under, maybe on a 2-team parlay. I haven't really talked much about parlays. All a parlay is, really the simplest way I can explain it, when you parlay, you can play more than one bet, but you have to win all the bets to win. But the payout, percentage-wise, is much higher than it would be if you just placed each of those bets individually. So, in other words, if you took Cincinnati -3 and the under 57.5, both of those bets would have to hit for you to get paid. But the percentage would be much more than if you bet each of those things individually. I hope that makes sense. And again, when you go over to the site, it's really easy to figure it out because if you select Cincinnati -3 and under 57.5, it's going to ask you, do you want to bet, do you want to straight bet these, bet them individually, or do you want to parlay them? And when you enter the amount that you want to bet on the parlay, it shows you what you will win if you choose to go ahead and make that bet. And you'll see what I mean with the payout differences by playing around on the site over there. Even if you're not signed up, go over there and play around on it. You'll learn a lot just playing around over there. If you are a believer in UCLA and you think they're going to be way better this year and they're not going to have any trouble going on the road and handling Cincinnati, I think you should take the over 57.5. Because for UCLA to win this game, they're going to have to move up and down the field. Like we mentioned, their offense is going to have to be clicking, which I think will result in more points being scored in this game. So that's a long-winded way for me to say I'm not sure how this game is going to go, whether it's going to go UCLA or Cincinnati. It's a tough one to pick week 1 to me. I don't like, I looked for a reason to take UCLA. I don't like taking road underdogs. I just don't. I do sometimes, but I try to avoid it. So, again, if you're not a believer in UCLA, take Cincinnati -3 and the under 57.5. If you are a believer in Chip Kelly and UCLA year 2, take UCLA, get the 3 points, and play the over 57.5. All right, Purdue at Nevada. This comes on tomorrow night, Friday. I will admit this isn't a very interesting game for a variety of reasons. Purdue's not going to be a great team this year. They're going to be one of those middle-of-the-road Big Ten teams that hovers around the 6-7 win mark. Maybe they have a big year and get to 8 wins, right? Nevada, not even a Power 5 team. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you can't name one player on Nevada's team. Purdue is an 11-point favorite. I'm mentioning this game only because I've spent a lot of time this offseason talking about Rondale Moore, wide receiver for Purdue. I think he's one of the most exciting players in all of college football. So I wanted to take a look at this first game here, and I'll probably even watch some of this game since it comes on Friday night just to see what Rondale Moore is looking like this year at Purdue. Purdue's an 11-point favorite. I can't take that on the road against Nevada. I would take Nevada and the 11 points here. I do think Purdue can win this game, maybe get a score late or something like that and win by, 7 to 10 points, something like that. 11, that's too much for me to lay on the road. Give me the home team here, Nevada, and the 11 points. All right, also on Friday night, and now this one might be, maybe you don't like these two teams, but I think this will be an entertaining game. Oklahoma State on the road at Oregon State. And I know what you're thinking, Oregon State is a terrible team, and that's true. They have been for the last few years. But I think offensively, Oregon State is going to put up some points this year. I really do, for a variety of reasons. Number one, I think Oregon State has some real talent and is going to have some real improvement on that side of the ball this year. Number two, they're playing a lot of Pac-12 teams that don't have great defenses. And here you go, week one, they get Oklahoma State, which consistently has one of the best offenses in the Big 12. But like Oklahoma, they don't play a whole lot of defense. Oklahoma State is a 14-point road favorite here at Oregon State. To give you an idea of how many points people expect to be scored in this game, we just got done talking about UCLA and Cincinnati, and I mentioned that the over-under was 57.5. That's a lot of points. The over-under in Oklahoma State at Oregon State is 72. Okay, so that's what? How many more points is that? 15 more points almost. So that's all. You know, they expect 2 more touchdowns total to be scored in this game than they do the UCLA. The UCLA Cincinnati game. I'm just not a believer yet in Oregon State. I think Oklahoma State is 2 touchdowns better than Oregon State. I really like Oklahoma State offensively. I think they've got too many weapons at too many different spots on the field for Oregon State to be able to take away all of them at the same time. I don't think Oregon State's defense is going to be able to do that. I do think Oregon State will score a lot of points here. I considered taking the over in this game, but 72 is a lot of points. But I could really see this being like a high 40s to mid 30s type of game, which is going to put the points well into the 70s. I think Oklahoma State wins this game by more than the 2 touchdowns. I'm going to break my own rule here. I'm going to take the road favorite here. Give me Oklahoma State, lay to 14. All right, on to some Saturday games. And how about this one here? Indiana State at Kansas. Les Miles debuted, a grass eater over here for the Kansas Jayhawks. Kansas is not going to be good this year. They're going to probably finish last in the Big 12 again. They're a 5.5-point favorite here, and their star running back, their best player, Puka Williams, is suspended for this game. But Indiana State is that bad, and Les Miles is worth something. I'm going to take Kansas in the 5.5 here, and I actually think Kansas wins this game big. I don't think they're going to be a great team this year, but the fans are excited. I think this will probably be the best, even though it's Indiana State, I think this will probably be the best home atmosphere at a Kansas football game in a long, long time. Kansas will take a running back by committee approach in this game, and while none of those running backs will be as good as the one that's suspended, Puka Williams, he's only out for 1 game. Will be back game 2. None of them are as good as Puka Williams. I think overall, combined against a pretty poor Indiana State defense, I think Kansas' running game will be fine. I could easily see Kansas winning this game by 14 to 17 points. 5.5, people are just sleeping on Kansas because they're terrible. And like I said, I'm not trying to say they're a great team, but I do think they win this week and win big. Give me Les Miles, lay to 5.5. All right, some conference games here in the ACC. Virginia Tech at Boston College. Virginia Tech is actually a 5-point favorite in this game. Of course, Boston College has one of the best running backs, not only in the ACC, but probably one of the best 10 running backs in college football in A.J. Dillon. Virginia Tech been one of the most disappointing Power 5 teams over the last couple of years. A lot of hype when they brought in Justin Fuentes. People thought they were going to really get going, particularly offensively. It hasn't worked out that way. They have really, really struggled. And in fact, Virginia under Bronco Mendenhall, who came in about the same time that Fuentes did at Virginia Tech, Mendenhall at Virginia has had a lot more success, I think, than what Fuentes has had at Virginia Tech. Now, you say, well, yeah, but they haven't beat Virginia Tech, and that's true. Virginia Tech has beat Virginia for a lot of years in a row. That could change this year. But my point is, Virginia Tech has been kind of underwhelming so far under Fuentes. Of course, we all remember the humiliating loss last year to Old Dominion. Boston College and Virginia Tech are one of these typical ACC teams right now, and there's a bunch of them right now. You got a lot of teams in the ACC that are 6-7 win teams, maybe 8 if they beat somebody they're not supposed to. But you got a lot of teams in the ACC who are just average and middle of the road. I don't see a whole lot of difference between these two teams. Boston College, to me, is going to have the best player on the field. A.J. Dillon has had some issues in the past staying healthy. He's sort of a workhorse for Boston College. They really use him a lot. But this is week 1. I mean, he'll be, he won't be wore out in this heading into this game. He'll be full speed here. I'm going to take the home team and the best player on the field in Boston College. Give me the 5 points. All right, and Virginia at Pittsburgh. So another ACC game here. Virginia is a 2.5-point road favorite in this one. Pittsburgh has actually beat Virginia 4 straight years. This is a tough one to me. I'm high on Virginia this year. Pitt obviously won the division last year, the sacrificial lamb that division had to send to Charlotte to get slaughtered by Clemson. Virginia's got 8 starters back on defense, plus they have Bryce Perkins, who I think is the second best quarterback in the ACC behind, obviously, Trevor Lawrence. He's a guy that can make a lot of plays, not only with his arms, but with his legs. He's the type of guy that can almost win a game all by himself. I'm going to take the road team here. I'm higher on Virginia than a lot of people are. And there's a few teams, and you need to keep this in mind too. It doesn't necessarily matter that if you agree with me on the teams. I'm higher on Virginia than most people. I'm higher on Michigan than most people. And I'm higher on Kentucky than most people. So I'm betting those 3 teams early in the season. A point spread, in this case, Virginia by 2.5, is an overall consensus of what the general betting public feels about a team. So overall, in general, the betting public thinks that Virginia is about 2.5 points better than Pitt in this game. Because I'm higher on Virginia than the average person, I think they're more than 2.5 points better than Pitt, so I take Virginia. That's the same logic I used in picking Kentucky earlier in the week and Michigan earlier in the week. Now, again, you don't have to agree with me about those 3 teams, but the point is, when you're looking at some games this week and next week and even into week 3 or 4, really, if there are teams in college football this year that you are a lot higher on than the average person, consider betting on those teams the first few weeks of the season, because again, the line is going to be what most people think about that team. If you're higher on a team than what most people think, you should be betting on that team in the first few weeks of the season. And the opposite is true too. If there's a team that you think is severely overrated, you should be betting against that team early in the season. A lot of people heading into the season thought Florida was severely overrated. I wasn't one of those people. I had Florida going 9-3. I thought they would handle Miami without a problem, but there's been people on this channel in the comment section and on the call-in show for 6 months telling me that Florida is going to be one of the most overrated teams in America this year. Now, if those people would have took what they believed and put money on Miami in that Florida-Miami game, they would have won themselves some money, right? So anyway, you understand the point I'm making. I'm higher on Virginia. I'm going to take the road favorite. Give me the Cavs, lay to 2.5. Boise State at FSU. This will probably be the most watched game out of this entire group that I'm talking about here. Florida State, of course, 6 years removed from one of the most dominant teams we've seen in a long, long time. In 2013, that Jameis Winston team that went undefeated and won the last BCS national title before they switched to the playoff system. But they completely fell off the face of the earth last year, going 5-7 in Willie Taggart's first year. A hugely disappointing year, and there is absolutely no way to sugarcoat it. When you look at the talent that Florida State had on that team last year, there is absolutely no legitimate reason that they should have missed a bowl game and went 5-7. According to 24/7 Sports, right, the recruiting site that rates players and all this kind of stuff, Florida State had the 4th or 5th most talented team in the country last year, and they play in one of the worst conferences in America, and were unable to even make a bowl game. It's just absolutely head-scratching. I don't see any way possible that Florida State is as bad this year as they were last year. Now, I am not a believer in Willie Taggart. I am not. I don't think he knows what he's doing. I think he's in over his head. And I don't expect Florida State to be some elite turnaround team this year and win 10 or 11 games. That's not what I'm saying. But the talent alone on that team is enough for me to look at it and go, there's no way they're not better than they were last year. They just absolutely have to be. I like some of the coordinators he brought in this year, Willie Taggart. And if he takes a hands-off approach and sort of lets them do their job, I think that's best case scenario for Florida State. We'll see. This is a home game. Boise State, people have an overinflated opinion of Boise State in 2019, in my opinion. People think of Boise State and they think of beating Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl that year, beating Georgia in a kickoff game 7, 8, 9 years ago, whatever it was, in an opening weekend game, Chris Peterson, crazy offenses, putting up a lot of points. That's not to say that Boise State isn't still a really, really good team and one of the best group of 5 teams in America year in and year out. Of course they are. But they're not that team they were back then. They're just not. They got absolutely road graded by Oklahoma State last year. It's been a while since they really knocked off one of the big teams. I don't see it happening here on the road at Florida State. Now, I made a mistake last season in week 1. Florida State was hosting Virginia Tech on Labor Day, Monday night last year. And I thought Florida State was going to be pretty good. I took Florida State in that game, and they never even got off the bus. It was one of the worst Florida State performances that I've ever seen. Again, I don't think we're going to see performances like that again this year for Florida State. I still think they're going to lose some head-scratching games, but I don't think they're going to lose them as bad or as ugly. And I just don't think they're going to look as bad overall as they did last year. Florida State is only a 4.5-point favorite in this game. I don't see any way they can be as bad as they were last year, especially at home here to open up the season. And this does not look like the Boise State team of old to me. It just doesn't. Boise State is replacing a ton of starters on their team. They may be playing a freshman quarterback in this game. I think Florida State is set to roll in this game. I think 4.5 is too low. I think Florida State wins this game by at least a couple of scores. Give me the Seminoles at home and lay the 4.5 points. All right, and from one of the most disappointing teams of 2018, Florida State, to another one of the most disappointing teams of 2018, Southern Cal. They host Fresno State Saturday night. Fresno State, 8 new offensive starters. Fresno State has beat a lot of Pac-12 teams over the last couple of years. I think they beat 2 last year. So they've sort of made a habit of beating up on some of the inferior teams in the Pac-12. And unfortunately, right now, USC is considered one of those inferior teams. You can say a lot of the same things about Southern Cal that I just said about Florida State. It's unbelievable to me that Southern Cal went 5-7 last year with the talent that they have and how bad. The ACC and the Pac-12 are the 2 worst conferences, period. It's not close. Florida State and Southern Cal have been 2 of the most dominant programs over the last 20 years or so, recruited at an insane level, and both of them just completely fell off the map last year. It was really, really head-scratching. Clay Helton, again, head coach out there, a guy that I'm not sure really knows what he's doing. This could be his last year there. Forget making a bowl game. If they don't win 9 or 10 games this year, I think you got to get rid of Clay Helton and move on. Southern Cal's got way too much talent to be letting Utah win that division year in and year out. Southern Cal is way more right now. Southern Cal is way closer to Arizona and Arizona State than they are to Utah, never mind Oregon and Washington, okay? Now, Southern Cal is a 13.5-point home favorite in this game. I like that number if you like Southern Cal in this game, because 14, of course, is 2 touchdowns. Anything under that, if you like Southern Cal, I think that's a good number to take. I can't talk myself into taking Southern Cal here. Now, Fresno State worries me because they're replacing so much on offense. Don't really know what they're going to do there. Southern Cal's got JT Daniels, right? Graham Harrell comes in as offensive coordinator. They're going to sling the ball around. Of course, he comes from the Texas Tech tree, right, under Cliff Kingsbury. You remember what they used to do? Quick passing game, hurry-up offense, that type of thing. Again, just like Florida State, I can't imagine Southern Cal being as bad as they were last year. I can't see it happening. But I can't lay 13.5 in Southern Cal with Southern Cal in week 1 until I see them play. I mean, that's almost 2 touchdowns. I can't give that away after the product that Southern Cal put on the field last year. So I couldn't make myself pull the trigger on Southern Cal. Look at Florida State. They were only a 4.5-point favorite. That was a lot easier for me to roll the dice on, okay? I can't do that on Southern Cal. I'm also not very confident on Fresno State's ability to move the ball with 8 new starters with a Southern Cal defense that say whatever you want about Southern Cal's defense from last year. Again, it's loaded with talent and athletes over there. The over-under on this game is 52.5. I'm probably not going to play this game at all because I'll be honest with you. I think Southern Cal has the potential, when you look at their roster and their quarterback and their wide receivers, they have the potential to score almost 50 points themselves. Okay? But again, until I see them do something, it's hard for me to put a lot of faith in them. I'm not going to play this game at all. If you held a gun to my head and made me make a play here, I would take under 52.5. All right, that's it. That wraps up the preview and prediction videos for week 1 of the 2019 college football season. I hope you guys are excited as I am to get this season kicked off. I mean, I just can't wait. I know we had a game last week, but, you know, it was hard to get as excited last weekend, I think, as it's going to be to get excited this weekend. You know, I mean, we all got up last Saturday and watched game day for no reason at 9 in the morning, even though there wasn't a game coming on until 6 or 7 o'clock at night. None of our teams were playing unless you're a Florida or a Miami fan or an Arizona or a Hawaii fan. That's not the case this week. I mean, it kicks off tonight with the #1 team in America, Clemson, hosting Georgia Tech in an ACC game. You've got 5 straight days of quality college football game. There are at least a handful of games every single day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, one on Sunday and one on Monday, that are worth watching. I absolutely cannot wait. I'm going to camp out here in my grandma's garage for the better half of the next 5 days and watch a whole lot of football. I'm live streaming the Georgia Tech Clemson game tonight. I know a lot of you guys are unable to get the ACC network right now due to contract disputes with a lot of the different carriers. Now, I can't show the game on YouTube, obviously, but I'm going to sit out here and put it on the TV. I'll have all the games on. 3 TVs out here. So I'll have all the games on. I'm going to do a live show during the Georgia Tech Clemson game. Now, I think it starts at 8 o'clock. Lou Jr. has his first soccer practice of the season tonight, and it's from 7 to 8. So I'm going to get home as quick as I can. I hope to have the stream up and running by 8:15, but we'll see. But there's no way, I don't think, that I can get home in time to have it started at kickoff of the game. But make sure you tune in tonight, even if you're watching the game at home or whatever, and you have the ACC network. Put the game on the TV, put your phone on mute, hang out in the comments section, discuss the game with us. At halftime, or maybe even in the second half, if it starts to be a blowout, we'll take some phone calls like we normally do on the live shows. Texas A&M plays tonight too. Now they play a nobody, but you know, I'm a Georgia fan. We play Texas A&M this year for the first time since they joined the SEC 8-9 years ago. So I'm a little interested to see what they look like. I'll probably check out some of that game later this evening too. But anyway, handful of good games to watch tonight. We're going to do a live stream tonight. It'll probably last 3 or 4 hours. Again, I wish I could start it right at 8 o'clock for you guys when the Georgia Tech game comes on. But unfortunately, I probably won't be home until right at 8 o'clock. And then it takes me some amount of time to get set up out here and start the live show. But join us tonight. I'll see you guys then. I appreciate you watching and have a great morning.